Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for taking your time off to come to 1 Kay Siang Road. I think probably this is the first time most of you are here. Welcome. There's a lot of fresh air here and the greeneries that greet you, I suppose. Yeah. I'm Anderson Yee, the Deputy Director for the Institute for Adult Learning. Welcome to the preview session for the Master of Science in Skills and Workforce Development. Right. The agenda today is basically I will go through with you an introduction of the Institute for Adult Learning, IAL, because I guess some of you probably never hear us before, so you probably think that, hey, is this a new private education institution? Or some of you may know, okay, I heard IAL before, but perhaps I can give you more information of what we do. Next, we'll talk about the changing landscape, the impetus of IAL bringing this program, working closely with Cardiff, one of the renowned universities in the world, to come up with this program for what purpose, right? Then we have the introduction from Professor Phil Brown, straight from Cardiff, to share with you the details of the program, and subsequently we'll end off with some administrative exercises and Q&A. All right? I like to keep this very informal so that at least, you know, you can, along the way, you got certain questions you can ask, right? So, the Institute for Adult Learning actually started way in 2002 during the then Economic Review Committee that they need an institution for adult learning and adult pedagogy, a research center. And it was set up in 2008 where we first come into existence, has a division of the Workforce Development Agency. So in short, we are WDA and we are a state board. So we are not a private company. And, how come you jump like that? Okay. So in terms of the vision, basically this is what we're trying to do. We are going to be the so-called the beacon of light for the continuous education and training sector. So whatever you do about adult learning, new skills in the CET has in continuous education and training sector, we are seen as the forefront in such information and such trend. So how do we achieve that? It's through our 3 strategic thrusts within IAL. Firstly, to inspire, we nurture a professional and dynamic CET community. Coming with activities, we have special interest group, with our adult education network, where we come up with conversations, we come up with programs that we engage the community. So this is about developing the dynamic community. Yeah? Then we advocate, we try new things, we catalyze new implementation, execution in tech enablement, in workplace-based learning. So anything that you want to try, you want to do pilots, you want to try technology-enabled learning, this is part of what we do. And last but not least, lead to develop the capability of research-informed practices using research to drive decision-making. So this is what we're also trying to advocate. So IAL, in short, we stand by these 3 strategic thrusts. And when we talk about programs, if you recall nurturing a dynamic community, we have a training and adult professional competency model. I'm wondering how many of you have seen it. If you don't, do check out our website. We have a very comprehensive model that touches on AE, adult educators, training management professional, HR development specifically, and workforce development, people like in MOM, in WDA, or in Spring Singapore. Why? Because when we first started IAL, we thought that, you know, as long as we got very strong training program, pedagogy training program for adult educator, it is enough. But somehow in 2012, we realized that to enable the CET transformation to what we want them to be in the near future, actually we need different peripherals, right? That's why we included training management, people that perhaps work in a training organization, doing scheduling, doing quality assurances. So these are what we classify them as training management professional. HRD, people that is in the enterprise, business owners that is thinking, how can I enable learning to be a competitive edge for my business? So this we classify them as HRD professional, right? And last but not least, our workforce development people. People like Spring, MOM. How do we come up with policies? How do we come up with implementation plans or even communication to outreach to the people? All right, so we have a very comprehensive TAE, PCM in short, to help guide our community. So if you are a training management professional, HRD professional, you can actually use this guide to say, what are we going to do? What kind of competency I need to perform my role in this particular level, and what type of training or activity that is packed to it. So you have a very nice progression pathway or portability in these 4 job roles. And specifically, I also want to highlight and stress upon all the programs that we bring in have to fit a particular purpose. I think some of you who have done your research, you know we have 4 master's programs and many other formal programs, right? And where does Cardiff sit? It sits here. Meaning, the programs that Cardiff, the content, the skills that you acquire through this program actually can cater to the 4 job roles. Later, I'll share with you a little bit more. Then you see our other Masters in Training and Development and Master of Arts in Professional Education. It fits the profile of an adult educator and a part of training management professional, and so on. So all our programs has got a specific reason they are here, and we are quite unlike other private sector that we sell MBA, etc., etc. Because if you want to do MBA, you go there and do, right? You come to IIL because there's a specific need in the current system, or we identify a future skills that's going to drive workforce transformation. Got it? So, what is workforce development? When we mention this term through the past feedback, we realize, this is government side one, government do one. Unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, not so true, right? Because if you look at it, it encompasses activity and policy to create, sustain, and retain a viable workforce for your industry and for your business. So as a business person, as a HRD, as an AE, how do you view workforce development as an edge? Whether you are giving it as a value proposition to a customer, or you are developing a plan to showcase to your bosses if you are HRD, and if a government person, how do you develop policy that works for the enterprise and for the individual? So this is what workforce development is all about. Put it another angle. If any of you today, I hope you'll come from the TAE PCM 4 job roles, quite all-encompassing, so likely, quite unlikely you are out of it, all right? So if you come in with any of these questions, right, ladies and gentlemen, you are in the right course, all right? You are in the right preview talk. Because later what I'm going to show is something that perhaps right now in the market, there's none in the world. Because in 2012, we worked with Cardiff, we identified this is a new skills going forward. In the past 2 years, we are developing the content, the case studies, and that's how it's formed and it's being launched. Why are all these questions critical and important? Ladies and gentlemen, we are entering a new era, all right? A new era where we are bombarded by information like mature workers face higher risks, we are bombarded by changing education and age profile, technology taking over our work, like recently the driverless car, you know, I would never be those. I would like to drive my car. But anyway, at the end of the day is, how do you use all this information for the best of your course of work now? Do you know? Right? And this is not only specifically Singapore. All right? This trend are across the world. It's global. It's a global trend. So unless you acquire new skills, then you can bring you better your organization, your practice to the next level. And of course, the buzzword for Singaporean now is skills future. What does that all mean to you in your own capacity? You can be running a training company, because just now I look at the schedule, the name list. I see some of you come from training centers, right? What does skills future mean to you? Not only to you as a training provider, But to the individuals that comes to you, how are you going to enable? How are you going to make it happen? Employers, if any of the HRD personnel is here, if you are bosses that runs your own company, how does SkillsFuture going to empower you to the next leap? And of course, I see some of my colleagues in the government sector. How is this, what we call the macro, is the government policy, the macro technology, the trend that's affecting us, implicate the meso, which is enterprise, and how does that motivates individual, who is the micro. And if these are all the things that you think you want to learn and want to acquire, and that's why you are here today, ladies and gentlemen, I assure you the skills you acquire in the Cardiff program will be a skills that is in demand for many years to come. Because SkillsFuture is not about 5 years, it's not about 10 years. It's a national movement that's going to last, I think, quite some time. All right? So with that, I'll pass on to Phil Brown, who will bring you through the Cardiff program.
I think probably the best way to start is just to introduce myself. I'm Phil Brown. I'm a distinguished research professor at Cardiff University. I was, I suppose, responsible with Sunju Gog and with Johnny, sitting at the back of the room, really for having a conversation over quite a number of years about the Singaporean model. And what was perfectly clear to us is that there were a number of changes taking place both in Singapore but also internationally, which we weren't really understanding. And we still don't really understand where it's all leading to. And what we thought is, do you know what? I don't think there is anywhere in the world where there is a master's program which is really trying to get a better sense of how that relationship between education and skills, labour markets, employability, and jobs, and those broader social questions about economic efficiency, productivity, and social justice, how that all kind of fits together, and what kind of model or what kind of models will we need for the future. And I think that really was the motivation for this Masters. I think was, well, what program could we put together which really for the first time allows people on the program to really analyze, to understand the kinds of changes we're talking about. You think just about the impact of new technologies. Now we're hearing a lot about robots at the moment. You know, how it's going to take over all our jobs. We're all going to be redundant pretty soon. But of course, you know, what's the real evidence for that? You know, how quickly will the robots begin to take over some jobs? And crucially, for instance, it's quite likely that actually it's the impact of technologies on existing jobs that we also need to understand. So there's a broad range of questions, okay, which we begin with, and that is what we've broken down into a number of modules. And one of the main things is to really give you a chance to explore some of the data, to work together. And the group we've got now, which is a relatively small group in year one, because they only just got started, they really enjoy it. You know, they're learning, but they're enjoying it as a team of people, and they've developed really good friendships as a result of this program. So we're very encouraged by what we've done so far, and hope that we can build on that in the next cohort. So let me just say just a little bit about Cardiff University. It's a very old established university which is part of the Russell Group of so-called elite universities within the UK. In terms of research excellence, it's ranked 5th in Britain, which puts it above many other universities that you might have heard of. And for the two key areas where we work, In sociology, we were ranked 2nd in the UK, and for education, ranked 5th. I'll talk about some of my colleagues a bit later, but the only reason I went to Cardiff, and I've been there now almost 20 years, is because we wanted to set up the School of Social Sciences, and I was one of the first appointments to that school. And what really excited me about that was not just that it was other sociologists or people in education, but it crossed the borders of social policy. It crossed the borders of sociology and education and criminology and social work. And with this sort of program, it does the same thing again. It crosses borders. Can you understand this from an economic perspective? In part, yeah. From a sociologist? In part, yeah. From education? In part. But what you really need is to bring these things together to really get a good sense of what's going on. So we are well known in these areas. Cardiff has a lot of students, 28,000, from a large number of countries. And I suppose we should say, is some of you may not know where Cardiff actually is, because I get the question, where is Cardiff exactly? Because they think it's a long way from London. It's 2 hours on the train from London, directly west. So I go to London frequently for a day meeting. You know, it's very near to London. And it's 3.5 hours from Manchester and 2 hours from Birmingham. And it's, well, I think it's a great city. And I hope that if some of you come on the programme, you'll come and visit Cardiff. But the main thing is that it's a high quality product, I think, that we're offering to you. Okay, so the School of Social Sciences, I don't want to say too much about this. You can ask questions if you want to. But obviously we do a lot of postgraduate as well as undergraduate programs. I myself have about 10 doctoral students, but we have about 120, 130 doctoral students within the school. So we're very much research driven, and we use that as a basis for our teaching, which I think is the most important thing. And as already mentioned, really, in terms of this area of education, skills, labour markets, employment, Cardiff is probably, well, certainly one of the best. I mean, I don't like talking up too much, but certainly probably the best in the UK actually in this particular field. Right, let's get on with. Let's talk a bit about the program itself. So we got together with the Institute for Adult Learning and thought this would be a good program to teach in Singapore. And it's a part-time executive program which consists of 4 taught modules and a dissertation for the masters. We'll talk a bit about other options later on. So what we really want to do then is, as Anderson has been talking about, is really developing your expertise in understanding the changes taking place in skills, work, labour markets. In terms of skills future, you know, that doesn't make much sense unless you understand the changing context, the impact of new technologies. But crucially also it is vital that you actually understand how to interpret some of the data. And one of the things is perfectly clear is that there are different theories, there are different ideas about the future of work. You know, will it be positive? Will it be challenging? Will it be negative? There are different interpretations, and we will introduce you to all those interpretations. And we will also introduce you to a comparative understanding. So yes, we will use Singapore as an example, but we'll also use the States, the UK, Germany, Sweden, and Scandinavia more generally as alternative kind of models for thinking through some of these issues. So we want to in part give you the analytical, theoretical tools, but also some practical tools as well, which can have an impact on your everyday practices. And I think one of the most exciting things for us in the first cohort is that when we talked about this, because I was here teaching Module 3 week before last, is that everybody we spoke to who was on the course explained how it had changed their practice already, how it had an impact on what they did on a daily basis. That for us was really, really exciting. We were delighted about that, and I'm sure this will happen again in the next cohort. So we want to really, we're not really looking just for people who work in the civil service. It can be we've got people who work in companies, who are trainers, who are mentors and career developers. I mean, this course really caters for quite a broad range of people. So don't be put off if you don't work for a government agency and you think this is what this is primarily about, because it's actually not, and the cohort now reflect that. And we think that because this is unique in many ways, it will give you a knowledge and an understanding which isn't out there. It just doesn't really exist because it's at the forefront of a lot of the debates. So we think this will be very valuable in terms of future career planning, but also hopefully you'll find it just really interesting. Okay, so I'm not going to spend ages on this because we don't want to be here all evening. I'm sure you're all very busy and want to get home. But so I'll keep it fairly short. Just to say that in terms of the four, well, you can read the 4 key aims of the program. It's cutting edge, but we want you to participate. So it's not just, so you won't get me just talking at you. You'll get a bit of that, but not that much of it. What you'll get is a bit of talk, and then a chance for you to work in groups. And then we'll go through what one of the modules looks like in a moment. But you participate, because in a sense that's what the important bit is. It's you participating. It's you learning in a constructive environment that we're really looking for, and developing these analytical tools, which is furthered by the dissertation that you would do. And I think this one is also very important, to provide that space to think and reflect, because we're all busy in our jobs, and we don't have time to reflect on what we do that much. So actually having a break from that and thinking, well, actually, this does change the way in which I kind of think about the world or my work or whatever it might be, or for that matter, as in some cases, my children's future, and about what they might do as well. So that time to reflect. Anderson has already covered these questions, but if these are the sorts of questions that you're interested in, then really this is the sort of thing you might want to think about. And we produce a book called The Global Auction, and that will be part of what you will learn about in terms of the implications for globalization and the future of work. So we use kind of if you like, we use the kind of idea of skills and employability as a way into the analysis of this rather broad range, about the sustainable economy. So it's not just a kind of a human capital approach. So we're not just saying, all right, if we invest in more skills and improve the quality of those skills, then we'll be fine in the future. What we're saying is that that's not really going to work in the future, that we need a broader understanding. So we need to look at these issues these issues around the sustainable economy, which is increasingly global, of course, and also the issues of inequality and social inclusion. Because we worked in the past with a model that if we skill people, they get better jobs and everybody will be paid more, that productivity is the route to a shared prosperity. But what we see then is these increasing inequalities alongside people investing in their skills. So there's something else going on, and we will certainly be exploring that. Issues of employability. What are the skills of the future? what kind of technical knowledge do you need, but also what are the social skills that you're going to need to really be able to prosper in the next 5, 10, 20 years. And what do we need to then teach people? What's the learning process then that will be required? So these sorts of things we will cover, and also one of the things that I've worked quite a lot on, and other people in the team, is on corporate restructuring and national skill formation, and what kind of model for the future we might want to think about. So in terms of the program then, so in the first year, which is basically starting in April of this year, then there's an induction program which is here. That's before any of the teaching really begins. And then module 1 is on skills and performance in the workplace. And then module 2 is really more about policy in a competitive world. And as we'll see in a moment, that is an online program. And then the one I've just been over teaching is on globalization and the future of work. And I'll just say that we tend to work with a team of 3 people for each module. And we will try and do that. And we use quite senior people, so at least a couple of them are very often professors and whatever, as you'll see from the team in a minute. Module 4 is then a research methods module, which prepares you for the dissertation. So you talk about what kind of thing you're interested in, and we then prepare you to then work on the dissertation at the end over the 2-year period. Oh, sorry. So here are the dates. So April is the induction. Then we've got the 5-day learning event. This is module 1. 11th to the 15th of May here. Then module 2, as I said, is online learning. Module 3, which I will be teaching with 1 or 2 colleagues, is in February of next year. And then module 4 is in May of 2017. Again, a 5-day learning event. And that takes the form of a Wednesday, Thursday and Friday evening, 7 to 9:30, and then all day Saturday and Sunday. So it's fairly intense, but it's manageable. You know, we need to make sure it's manageable. So if because everybody's kind of working and committed to other things. So we try to do it in a way that allows you to be able to fulfill the requirements of the masters. So we always start, for each module, we always start with, so this is for module 1, we always start with some pre-reading. So we give you normally 4 pieces to read in advance, just to get you going, so that when you're here and you get the first lecture and the first seminar, you've got something to sort of build on. This is followed by the learning event. And then you get a chance during that learning event to work in a group on an issue, and you give a presentation, and we will judge it. But it doesn't count towards the final grade for the module. It's just to give you feedback and to get you really started with what's required. And then there are 2 formal assessments. For module 1, 2,500 word research briefing, which obviously you get feedback at each point. And then for assignment 2, it's a little bit longer, 3,500 words. Again, feedback again, but these are both supported by webinars, which are conducted with staff from Cardiff, and you'll get support from here as well. So there's quite a lot of support available to you, and there's a virtual learning environment, Learning Central we tend to call it, which will fully support the program. So all the documentation will be available to you. And there'll be some video introductions and things for each of the modules, especially for module 2, of course, because it's distance learning. So in module 2, then you get kind of videos, webinars, you get discussion board groups, quizzes, and various other things. So we try to make it as interactive as possible, to make it as enjoyable as possible, as instructive as possible. I've got no idea where they got that photograph from, but it's terrible. Anyway, Caroline Lloyd is the convener of the program, and she is a very good academic in this field. She's done a lot of work on low skill work and improving the quality of low skill work. David James is new to us. He's coming on board now. Very pleased about that. He's terrific on education and labour markets. Alan Felsted is very well known for skill surveys and the nature of work, and you'll find Alan a very interesting person to work with. I won't go through everybody, but we have a very strong team of people. Manuel works with me on the globalisation future of skills, and all of them are leading writers in their fields. And we will probably bring in one or two other people, probably Ewart Keep, Professor Ewart Keep, on the online module, who's world renowned for policy in relation to skills and workforce development issues. Okay, so the other support, you'll get a tutor attached to you at the beginning, who you will keep during the duration of the masters, and there'll be an opportunity to meet staff during the learning events as well. Obviously, you have access to the university library and e-learning facilities, and there really are thousands of journals and resources for you there. There's also a library here as well, which you can obviously access, but the online facilities that we've got are very good, and all the materials that we have on our reading list are obviously made available to you online. I just want to add this in, really just for your information, and there are 2 points to note. One, we work on the assumption that you're coming to do a master's, but what if you change jobs? What if things are difficult? Right, if they get difficult, then if you do 2 modules, that's equivalent to 60 credits. We will award you a certificate in skills and workforce development. If you do the 4 modules, that's 120 credits, you'll get a diploma in skills and workforce development. If you obviously do the dissertation as well, then you'll get the master's. Okay? However, it's also worth pointing out that all 3 of these come with a pass grade, a merit grade, and a distinction. So it's possible to get these as whichever point you're at. Okay? The numbers don't really make much difference, but obviously to get a distinction is very, very good. To get merit is also very good, and to get pass is very good.